So Yazmin, I think last time I saw you was World Championships. We spoke very briefly, and then when I went back to the UK, I checked your Instagram, and you were stuck for like a 2 week period or something, quarantining.
Yeah.
I then got back in touch because I saw that you're on the start list for the British Champs, and then you were off. And again, I think you either, I can't remember where I heard it from, whether it was you or through Cody, that you weren't coming again, and it was because basically of more quarantining.
Yeah.
I'm kind of interested to know what that was like for you, because to some degree it was like unexpected that you were going to have to quarantine.
Yes, completely unexpected. So prior to going to Worlds, we were given an exemption because Uzbekistan was on the like dark red list for Malta, which means anyone coming back from that country would have had to do a 2-week quarantine. But we spoke to the health authorities here, and since we were like a national team going, for a Commonwealth qualifier, we were granted exemption on our return, which then got reversed on our way back. So as soon as we were like traveling back, I think it was like between literally like mid-flights. So we had 2 flights coming back, traveling from Uzbekistan. Like when we got to Istanbul, I believe, we got an email saying, actually, you won't be exempted. So we literally had no other option but to come back and initially tried to fight it, but didn't really have the energy to continue doing that. So I had to do 2 weeks in quarantine, which, as an athlete, for anyone in general is a big deal, 2 weeks inside. But as an athlete, I think it just demotivated me so much in general, even though I have a home gym. But we got through it. It was also over Christmas, which sucks. And then I spent a week out and about, and then I ended up testing positive for COVID, which meant I had to quarantine again. So competing at the British was already not a part of my plan, really, just because I have 3 qualification events under my belt already. And I kind of knew that I was not in shape to top what I've already done. So that just made it even more clear that I am just not going to compete at the British.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it was nice to see at the British Championships that there was quite a decently sized Maltese team.
Yeah.
I remember looking through some of your interviews in the past, and I think there's a point where you mentioned how when you started out, you were maybe like the first female Maltese weightlifter. And now there's like a team, like a squad specifically just of female weightlifters in Malta, which I can only imagine to some degree is through your influence, because you've grown to become one of the most popular weightlifters in the world. How does that make you feel? Because like, obviously your goals are, I want to be one of the best weightlifters, but do you have goals, sort of tangential goals about, I want to empower other women, or I want to bring more women into the sport? Like, how does it make you feel seeing the growth within Malta?
Yeah, I mean, I like to think that I had something to do with it, especially given that if you walk into the gym here in Malta, it is 95% female, which is incredible.
Wow. Is that recent? Was it always like that when you started?
No. So when I started, I think I was the only girl like walking to the gym most of the time. There were a few other senior lifters that were kind of bouncing through CrossFit and powerlifting, but not like real, just like weightlifting athletes that were female. I believe I was one of the first ones. But now it's like all you see in the gym is female, lifters, mostly younger, much younger than me. And yes, I like to think I had something to do with it. I like to think that I had something to do with the growth of weightlifting in general. I think though that, Jesmond, my coach, he works tirelessly on weightlifting here in Malta. So without his drive in the back though, I don't think we could have made weightlifting such a thing here, because it is really like quite popular now. I remember in the beginning when I started, people never really truly knew what I did. They confused it with powerlifting and bodybuilding, and now people know exactly what it is that I do. They know the movements and they follow me in my competitions and they get it. And it's such like a widespread knowledge now that in such a short amount of time, because I've only been lifting for 5-6 years. So it's crazy to see the growth, and it's crazy to see, I'm sure you've seen our kids lifting ridiculously, like great looking technique, really
Yeah.
lifting. It's incredible to see. And like you said, my aims are to be a great athlete myself, but I love the sport in general. So to be able to have other people take off of what I did and maybe even aim bigger than that. So my aim is to stay in the sport for as long as possible, even if it isn't as an athlete. So it's a win-win for me.
Yeah. And do you find that the younger weightlifters look up to you? Like, do you almost have a bit of a, not parental role, but you're there to share experience because at the end of the day, you've reached higher heights than any of them have. You've been to the Olympics, you're Commonwealth champs medalist.
So it's strange because let's say one of our greatest youth athletes, Tanisha, has been lifting roughly the same amount as I have.
Yeah.
So we've kind of grown in the sport together in a way.
Right.
But of course, since I'm much older, I still try to give her my opinions and my experiences and stuff like this. But at the same time, there's not much for me to teach her because she's literally been going through it at the same time as me.
Yeah.
So if anything, and this will sound weird, I learn a lot from the kids myself.
Yeah.
Because they're so fearless and they're so, like, if they're gonna hit a PR, they don't care about the risks, they're really going for it. They don't care about anything. And I've learned so much from them in that sense. Like, I really wish I'm as fearless as them. But yeah, in terms of then maybe like mental prep and looking out for your future, making sure you don't overdo it with injuries and stuff like this. I think, yes, I can definitely contribute in that aspect, like as an older athlete. But yeah, it definitely goes both ways.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I've noticed that with the younger athletes, like they're just fearless. They have no worries about their knees or their backs. They go underweight, so they'll hit a PR and be like, "Hey, coach, can I add another 5 kilos?" And it's like 5. That's like 10% of your lift. You're going to add 5 kilos, and they just want to do it.
Yeah,
it is kind of inspiring.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that at the start, people, they got confused. They thought it was bodybuilding. They thought it was powerlifting, and now they kind of understand what weightlifting is. Is that like specifically in Malta? So like up in Malta, and a lot of people probably watching this don't know. They don't even know where Malta is. They don't realize that it's tiny island in the Mediterranean. I mean, it's basically the most beautiful spot in the world, and it really is an amazing place to go. Not that I've been, but I've been to Greek islands, which are in a similar-ish area. But how well known are you in Malta now? Because I don't know what the population is, but it can't be big.
So it's 400,000 or a bit above that, actually, like 450,000.
Right.
So Malta is tiny, and
smaller than my city.
Yeah. So people definitely know who I am, but because Malta's so small, it's almost like when people know who you are, it's like because you're their friend and you're
that's
your
nice.
neighbor, or they know your mom's friend or aunties or whatever. Like literally everyone's just like connected, which is great. I love it. Definitely a lot more people know who I am here. But it's not as big of a deal because, like I said, in Malta, everyone knows each other anyway.
Yeah.
What was shocking was more like people knowing who I am outside of Malta, because I come from, like you're saying, like no one truly understands how small this island is.
Yeah.
Until like I try to send them like pictures comparing, I don't know, Malta to like a state in the US, and it's like no one can truly fathom how tiny Malta is.
Tiny, yeah.
So when I go abroad, let's say in Uzbekistan, and the Uzbeki team, so the volunteers knew who I was. And I just kept looking at them like, what? How on earth do you know who I am? Like I can never get used to that at all. People recognizing who I am. But I guess it is because, first of all, weightlifting is such a small sport in general, like all over the world. And it's becoming so much more popular now. So I guess I grew with the popularity of weightlifting as well around the world. So yeah, I guess it's not too hard to understand why people would know who I am.
Yeah, I mean, when we were at the training hall, there's that one video that I put up on the Instagram. I can't remember if I think it was you lifting rather than the Armenians doing presses, but in that video, they turn and look at you, and what you didn't, maybe you knew this, maybe you didn't, but like I've got a lot of videos of you from that session, but it was really hard to get to you because, you know, media had to stay on one side and the Armenians are in the way. But every time you do a lift, you would see like Simone Martirosyan, you know, world record holder, he would turn and look, and then Gore and like the big Armenians. And so many people turn to watch you. And I think to some degree that is because they know who you are in a way that a lot of weightlifters don't quite yet have a name for themselves. And that's changing with some of the elite lifters. But it must feel weird to be like watched when you lift like that.
Yeah, it's crazy, honestly, because obviously these are, so I was training some of, like next to some of the world's best athletes. And it's something that I've realized through the past few years from traveling alone to all these countries, that these, you know, I used to look up to these athletes, look at them like they were these athletes that would never even consider talking to me, you know, because I'm not a world record holder and I don't medal at the worlds and stuff like this. But because I was always alone, I always forced myself to befriend every person that was around me. And these people are literally some of the most respectful persons ever, because as athletes, they know that no matter your level, everyone's working super hard, and they have all athletes have such a mutual respect. So I love that about it. And like you said, some of, you know, even if it's a world record holder lifting right next to me, he will stop and watch and support. And even if I'm, you know, even if I'm clean and jerking what he's strict pressing next to me. So yeah, that was great training there around all those amazing athletes. And like I said, like I've made so many friends, even with some of the best lifters in the world. And it's incredible to see how humble they are and how supportive they are.
Yeah. And are there lifters who you still get a feeling of like, oh my God, it's that person? Because I remember 2019 Worlds, which is where we first met, you were known, but not like you are. Like you've got like 140,000 Instagram followers at the moment. And I think when I first started following you, you had like 7 or 8, like it was way back, 7 or 8,000. In 2019, you probably only had like 25,000. I say only, like that's still a lot. But so
less for sure.
And you turned up to that competition. I remember you made a post, something about like, oh my God, there's Matty Rogers. Like, or like there's Hunter Elam or Kate Nye. And it was kind of funny to think like, wow, you know, you have the same level of popularity as these people. You're as known, but those are the people that you get really excited to see. Do you still have that where there are athletes who kind of, you get a little bit like nervous around? Or
100%. Well, not just, I wouldn't call it nervous. I would just call it, you know, whenever you meet your heroes, it never becomes casual, you know? And Matty Rogers is the reason I started lifting. Like,
really?
I was borderline obsessed with her Instagram. Like I would just, because, you know, back then I had the mentality of, you know, weightlifting is such a male dominated sport. And I loved that Matty didn't care. And, you know, she looked great doing it. And she was so hardworking and determined and still is, obviously. So, you know, being able, I think one of the main things that like really was forever stay in my heart is the fact that I became an Olympian at the same time Matthew Rogers became.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's insane to think about, and to be able to even just see her train. You know, I try to, as much as possible, not fangirl and annoy athletes as much as possible, but just to watch her train. Even now, I'm always just secretly obsessing about all these like greats, all the great athletes. It's so nice to be able to be around them, compete alongside them. And I will never take that for granted. And I don't think it will ever be a normal thing, no matter how many followers I have, because that doesn't make a difference whatsoever. Like these are some of the best athletes in the world. And I love weightlifting. I love the sport. And like I said, to be able to share all these experiences with them is something that I'll forever treasure for sure.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because you know, this idea of you watching Matty and she was like a role model, I think because as a guy, I didn't realize how important the female role models were to bring other women into the sport, because there was no barrier for entry for me, because like I grew up and I went to the gym because I liked working out and it was what you do. And it's how you like gain social points at school. If you're a guy, it's like who's got the biggest arms and that sort of stuff. And then getting into weightlifting is just logical because all the biggest and strongest people do it. And so there was no barrier at all there. Whereas for you, you almost had to look beyond it's not just who's the best female weightlifter, it's who opens up and talks a little bit more about what they do. And what's interesting about that is I was talking to Cody last week, and I was talking about who are your favorite female weightlifters. And she took a while to think, and I was like, is it Kuo Sung Chun? Is it Deng Wei? Is it Loredana? And she was like, no, to be honest, like me and my friends, we're not really that interested in who are the best female weightlifters necessarily. Like, and then she said, it's probably someone like Yazmin, because I feel like her numbers, I kind of like, she's like, I can back squat Yazmin's clean and jerk. So like, there's a little bit of relatedness there. And then also she's like, she talks about the difficult things. She talks about what it's actually like to train. And I think, so you're able to then do to her, because she's only been in the sport for like a year and a half or 2 years, you know, what sort of someone like Matty did for you.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's so much more important, I feel, on the women's side than it is on the men's, because it's so easy for a guy to just be like, yeah, I'll do it. And no one's going to judge me and my identity for it, because it's very normal for a guy to lift weights.
Yeah. And people obviously see me now and they hear me talk about how, you know, I love my muscles, and when they're growing, I'm proud of it. And I love showing off muscles and stuff like this. And maybe they assume that that was always the case.
Yeah.
But the first year, especially when I started taking up weightlifting, it was a constant worry about, you know, I'm going to get muscly. Am I going to look good? Am I, you know, are people going to talk about me getting muscly? So it was a constant worry. I look back now and think I was an idiot for doing that. But if you have no one around you that's doing the same thing, you worry about, you know, these silly little things. They seem silly now, but like I said, like back then it was a big deal for me. And you know, being able to talk about it. And it's funny that you say this, like people might look up to me because I'm more of a realistic goal, I guess. And some people thought I'd take offense for this, but I really don't. I love that I am a realistic goal for a lot of people, because that helped me in my career as well. And I actually, before I went to the Olympics, one of my friends, Amanda from Denmark, she was
strong panda.
She was beyond happy that I was going to the Olympics. Like she was like ridiculously over the moon. And the first thing she told me is, she's like, I'm happy because one of us is going to the Olympic Games. And it hit me like, no, like, because for a very long time, I always wondered, why are people supporting me so much? Because I'm not one of the greatest. Like, why are they following me? Why are they commenting and saying how great I am? I'm not really, you know, you go through that phase of, am I good enough to be going to the Olympics? Like, is this even fair? And then I keep getting these messages, and these people, they love that I was going to the Olympics because I represented the generation of athletes that, first of all, started late. You know, I started at 22, 23 years old. The generation that did not have a background in professional sports. You know, I came out of uni doing a bachelor's degree in maths and statistics. And 4 years later, I was at the Olympics. Small island, small population. So I represented so many of the minorities. And I definitely took that up with me on the stage at the Olympics. I definitely felt the responsibility to represent all of these little groups of people.
Yeah, totally.
And that really made my Olympic experience so much better, just knowing that not only did I feel that then, but so many people felt that for me, that I was representing them in some way.
I think that's a great way to put it, because weightlifting is so circumstantial. Like everybody is working really hard. Like the people in Kazakhstan and China and the UK and Malta, everyone's working really hard. But if you're born in another country, there's a better support system that allows you to hit higher levels. And so there are all of these different levels. And like, I think it's like you said, there is this certain level of representation of like, you are doing it from a country like in Denmark with Amanda and those lifters, where they're like, you know what, you're like one of us, because you come from a country where there is very little support. Obviously your coach is amazing. And is he the guy with the dark hair? Like young guy?
There were two coaches at
yeah.
So the older guy is the national team coach, and he's the one that coaches me. And
I spoke to him. He was nice.
The younger coach used to be a national team athlete as well. And just started to take over the youth national team.
Right. Yeah, they're both great. But
Yeah.
it's like, you know, there is that certain level of representation that you are the proof of what's possible if you didn't grow up in a system that's geared towards weightlifting from like a young age, which is very cool. Yeah.
Definitely. And you know, it's great that I have support from, let's say, Lori from Romania. You know, we've been friends for quite a while now, from training there a few times.
So just for people who aren't on like nickname terms, you're talking about Loredana
Yeah. Yeah, she's always telling me like, oh, you haven't even started yet. Like, don't be discouraged. You know, you've only been in the sport for 5 years. You barely even like started yet. And that almost like motivates me even more, that, you know, a person that snatches more than I'll probably ever clean and jerk.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
believes in me so much, you know, and it's great. Like I said, even amongst the best athletes in the world, there's such mutual respect and support. And yeah, like I always thought training next to her would feel embarrassing, but it felt the absolute opposite. Like it's just so motivating to train next to someone like that. So yeah, just what she says, always telling me that, you know, I haven't even really started yet, gives me like hope that, you know, even though I am 28 now, there's still so much more to come, really.
So let's talk about her a little bit, because I've filmed her a few times. She always just blows me away by her level of focus in training. Like there was, were you at the Rome competition? 2020. I remember her training there and filming a session, and there were so many cameras all around her, and she was training so hard, like 2 days out doing heavy 2+1 complexes and pulls and squats. And a lot of what helps you get better as a weightlifter is being around weightlifters who are better than you, so that you can see someone snatch 100 and go, okay, like that looks fine. That looks like something I might be able to do. Whereas you kind of don't have that in Malta necessarily, and you have a support system of athletes. But what's it like for you training with someone who is like, well, a world champion, 2017, you know, gives the Chinese a run for their money, and you can see them train 3 times a day, like really hard. What does that do for you?
So first off, Lori is beyond words, like in every aspect.
She's very cool,
ridiculously strong, and I've seen her train firsthand, like long term. So she's definitely set the standard for my training. Like if I wake up one day and I don't feel like training, I'll just think about her probably demolishing a session.
She's doing it.
Even if she's in pain, like, and I'll just be motivated to do my session. But yeah, like you said, just training around someone who's, you know, I remember the first time I went to Romania in 2019, I was snatching, I think like 80.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is a warm-up power snatch for her. So doing that every day next to me, you know, you start wondering, like, she's the same body weight as me, roughly the same age. Obviously, she has a lot more experience. But, I mean, really, I can possibly do that, you know. I can't be stuck on 80. And, you know, and you see her like tirelessly focusing on technique, even though like she's so good, she's still every single repetition, focus on the technique, fix the technique, go on and on and on. And she really like changed my mindset about training for sure, to make every single lift count, whether it's from the warm up or your heaviest set. Like every single lift, you need to make sure that you're trying to fix it and make it better. And I think that's when my numbers definitely started to go up. Was because just changing my mindset about the lifts, not just the training itself. So I was training the same amount, doing the same program, but all of a sudden my mindset with every single lift changed. And definitely, you know, I went on to snatch 90 pre-Olympics last summer. And I remember she had just messaged me and been like, you have to snatch 90. It's there. Like, don't be fearful of it. Just go for it. It's there. You're going to do it 100%. Like, I'm sure, I'm telling you, just go for it. And I just said, okay, whatever. Like I told my coach, we're going to go for 90 today. And I was terrified.
Yeah.
But just knowing that if she thinks I can do it, you know, obviously many people have said that I can do it before, but for some reason, because one of the greatest athletes in the world tells you can do it, you just like, probably I can then.
Yeah,
And it was one of the easiest lifts I've ever done in my life, actually. So yeah, I mean, mentally, just training next to someone like that, and it doesn't hurt that she's such a cool person.
Yeah.
I'm afraid not a lot of people can be able to experience that, firsthand, like share so much time with an athlete like that. But she's such a down to earth, super cool person, super nice, super sweet. Like she even gets me little treats to my when I'm training there. If I do, good session, she'll bring me chocolates or cherries or whatever. And she's just such a great person to have as a friend in the sport. So it's been great knowing her for the past few years, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the Olympics, because that's one of the most incredible things. I think to start off with, backing up to us talking about Malta being a small country, do you feel a certain level of like loyalty and just like patriotism, and like, I'm going to represent this small island of Malta, and I want to put it on, I want to put it on the map. I want people to know more about it.
For sure. I mean, I think that was the biggest thing for me, is carrying that Maltese cross on my chest and going up on the Olympic stage after everything that my country's done with me in the past 4 years. They've really believed that I'll make it, never doubted it, really supported when I needed it. And to be able to do that, I felt such huge responsibility to perform for them on the Olympic stage, especially being the first female weightlifter to do so.
Yeah.
Just breaking that barrier, like weightlifting women are going to the games for Malta. Like that was such an important breakthrough for me. But also, I also felt a lot of pressure, because our only other representation at the Olympic Games ended up bombing out in Rio, which is a male lifter. So we never had a successful result at the Games. And with Olympic Games, Commonwealth Games, all these university games, if you do not set a result in your snatch, you can't even continue to do the game. So that just was constantly in the back of my head, thinking, whatever you do, don't bomb out. Whatever you do, get a successful result for your country. Like that just kept going on and on and on. And as much as I tried not to let it affect me, because I felt such a huge responsibility, the Olympic Games was the scariest thing I would ever do in my life, for sure. Like there's definitely no comparison. I was terrified.
I can imagine that first. I mean, let's go back even further then. So you didn't get into like the top 8, which is the way to qualify, and then there was this period of like, we know that the Tripartite Commission is going to pick a few other athletes. You made a video on it, which is incredible, and if people haven't seen it, they ought to go watch it. Can you just talk about that moment where you find out you're going to the Olympics?
So oh my God, that was like such a stressful time, because obviously the Tripartite Commission, a lot of people don't understand that the Tripartite Commission is still really competitive. Like, I mean, it is for small countries, but they're not small like Malta. They're massive next to Malta. So it is for smaller countries, but I promise you, like the competition is really, really tough. So I needed to, first of all, have Japan not choose a lifter in the 64. Because if Japan had to choose a lifter in the 64 kilo category, then the Tripartite Commission wouldn't even get a spot in the 64 kilo category. So I was actually in Romania at the time when Japan announced their team, and I was having breakfast with Laura Diana and the team, and she was like, "Oh my God, they didn't choose the 64 kilo athlete. Like, the spot is open for Tripartite Commission." And I remember just like, I couldn't breathe. We didn't know when they would say who would be a Tripartite Commission, like who would be the one chosen in 64. And it wasn't until like another 2 weeks later that the IOC, together with the IWF and the Tripartite Commission, so 3 different entities, chose who would go, 4 women and 4 men. And I was chosen as the person in the 64 kilo category. And at the time I was already back in Malta. And I got a phone call from the Maltese Olympic Committee
Were you with your family at that point?
So yeah, I was actually quarantining, but not quarantining because of travel. I was actually self-isolating on purpose.
Yeah.
In case I made it to the Olympics, I didn't want to risk getting COVID. So I was staying alone in Malta in an apartment on my own. And I got a message actually from someone from the Maltese Olympic Committee, who's a friend of mine, saying congratulations. And my heart, dropped, because why is my friend from the Maltese Olympic Committee saying congratulations? Like, I just messaged her like, what? And like 200 question marks, like, why?
Don't do this to me. Yeah.
Yeah. And at the same time, Yazmin, my coach and the president of the MWA, called me, and he's like, oh my God, yes, you got it. And he kept saying stuff. And I just, that's the last thing I heard. I was just literally, my jaw dropped. And all of a sudden, like, the last 4 years of my life flashed before my eyes, like something I genuinely thought would be impossible. Even though I worked really hard towards it, you always think there's no way that's going to happen. All of a sudden, it just became real, and I just told him, I know you're trying to talk to me, but I have no idea what you're saying right now. Like, I'm going to have to call you back because I need to tell my family. Like, I have to let them know. And just for context, my dad had once told me that the happiest day of his life would be if I ever made it to the Olympics. And this was way when I was younger, pre-weightlifting ever. When I was still like doing gymnastics competitively.
I didn't know.
And all I could like imagine was like his face when I told him. And yeah, it was like we were an emotional mess. Like the entire family was just sobbing and no one could truly believe it. And I cried for like 3 days straight. I'm not even exaggerating. Like every time I got into my car and like started thinking about it, I'd have to stop in the side of the road to just cry it out and then go again. Because it was such a big deal for not just me, but like for my country and my association and my family and my friends. Like so many people contributed to it. So it was just honestly a dream come true, just getting the news. And then obviously actually competing at the Olympics was going to be a completely new situation.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that would be like, but
that's such an amazing story. I do get shivers listening. I'm not very good with these sorts of stories. Like I get quite emotional. Like when
I'm glad you weren't around then, because you would have definitely sobbed with the rest of the family.
Yeah, when Meredith won at Worlds and I was trying to talk about it on camera, like I just basically started crying. Like I literally couldn't handle it. And this sort of story, I'm just like, I think that's so relatable. You can put yourself in the shoes of the other person and almost feel it.
Yeah.
And it's just unbelievable.
And I guess it was just different for me because, like I said, I mean, 5 years ago, I wasn't even doing the sport. 5 years ago, I was finishing my bachelor's degree, and like 22 years old, barely know what a snatch is.
Yeah.
And then fast forward 5 years later, and I actually made it to the Olympic Games. Like, it's definitely, I mean, I definitely didn't go there to win medals or anything like that. But what I managed to accomplish in 5 years is ridiculous. Even when I look back at it, I'm just so proud of the fact that I managed to do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course, my family is as well. Malta is as well. I mean, we have like an Olympic sign just down the road that's been there my entire life. And they lit up the flame when I was there.
Oh, wow.
They spoke about me on the radio every day when I was there. Like, it was such a big deal for everyone here that one of us, and it's true, like one of us was at the Olympic Games. Like it was unheard of. It was really, really sweet. Such a special moment.
And just how weird is it though? Like when you said that to me about I was 23 and I hadn't started weightlifting or whatever, and then 28 I was at the Olympics. It's like no one in your life, I guess, at that point would have gone, oh yeah, Yazmin's going to be at the Olympics. Like you were just living a normal life.
Yeah.
And so many people listening or who have never heard of the sport are just living a normal life. And then to think like you can make a decision that can change the course of your story so wildly. Yeah. It's like you almost can't believe that somebody's life can change so much so quickly.
Yeah. And as you say this, so I was coached for a while. Like I did a few training camps with Tamas Feher, who was also Great Britain Great Britain's coach at the London 2012 Games, I believe. And very early in my career, he had said something about a lifter. I won't remember the names. I'm not sure if it was English or Welsh, who started really late in her life and then went on to go to the Olympics.
Yeah.
And the way he said it, you know, because I had told him, he would ask, like, what are your aims? And, you know, I said, you know, I want to go to big competitions. And he had said, like, the Olympics. And I thought, oh, no, I mean, like, maybe Europeans or whatever, like, maybe even smaller than that. And he said, you know, like, I used to coach this athlete who started really, really late. And then, you know, I think she started way later than me, probably later in her 20s, and then eventually made it to the Olympic Games. And I just thought, you know, women are amazing, like what women can accomplish. Not that men can't, but like women, in fact, at these Olympic Games, I think there were like 5 Olympians, women Olympians in weightlifting that were like close to their 40s or over 40, or that have kids or have been to like their 4th Olympic Games. Like,
yeah,
women just, I don't know. The older they get, it's like the more incredible they become.
more resilient.
Yeah, it's crazy to see. And I just thought, well, if she did it, then maybe I can do it. And I think that's the first time I truly started working towards it. And I spoke to Yazmin about it, and he said, you know, I mean, there's 4 years left, go for it. Like, I will help you, obviously, if you have this dream. And I actually had just graduated from university, and I told my dad, I'm just gonna go full-time weightlifting for now, see if I can get to the Olympics. And me thinking he'll go, are you crazy? Like, what do you mean you're gonna do nothing? Like, you just graduated with a bachelor's degree. I thought he was gonna say I'm crazy, but he was totally supportive. He said, you know, if you don't do it now, you'll never do it. Try it out and go for it. And thankfully it worked out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of risks involved, but I'm so grateful to have been able to take the risks and have the support of the people around me as I took those risks. And it's honestly insane to think about.
Yeah, it's an incredible story. So you're at the Olympic Games. You know, I can only imagine. I know what it's like to feel nervous and sick before like a local competition or like university nationals, something like that.
Yeah.
The level of nervousness that I can imagine you felt in the back room warming up with the other athletes, the other 64s. How did that feel warming up? And then, you know, your name is called and it's like, it's time to go out and lift.
Yeah. So leading up to the Olympics, I've had like the best training of my life, you know, snatching 90, clean jerking 110, at 64, you know, I'd gone down a weight class and still lift more than I did at 71. Best training ever. Mentally, I was doing great. Everything was perfect. And I also had a lot of experience. So I've been to Commonwealth Games, Mediterranean Games, University Games, Europeans, Worlds. I've been to it all. So I just went there thinking, you know what? I've done it all. Like, this is literally it. Like, there's nothing I haven't done. And this is just like that competition. Every other competition I've done, it's the same type of barbell, same type of plates, same lifts I've always done. And, you know, weighing in, warming up, I felt no stress whatsoever. It just felt like every other competition. And then as soon as I was walking out and I, you know, you see the Tokyo like logo, like the Olympians logo. And it just hit me that everything I've done so far was to get to this. So whenever I was at Worlds, I always thought, okay, I need to do well here so I can go to the Olympics. You know, Europeans, I need a total here, really good total to push myself higher up on the ranking for the Olympics. Let's do this for experience for the Olympics. And it just, all of a sudden, I just realized that was it. Like, this is for this and that's it. Like, this is the competition. There's nothing else after this, you know, in that context. And I remember just feeling numb, completely numb. Put my hands on the bar, tried to lift it up, and I power snatched 84. Power snatched 84, like no joke, and just flew over my head because I had no feeling. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. And my coach looked at me. He's like, is that 84? Like, he honestly thought they put the wrong weight on the bar, because the way I just threw it over my head, it just looked like I don't know, like I was way too strong for that weight,
Right.
which was obviously not the case. He could see that I was super nervous. And obviously Jasmine has a lot of experience with me. He knows how I usually am. So he really did his best to kind of calm me down, you know, like, this is just like every other competition, calm down, imagine you're in the gym. He kept going on, but I could literally could not calm down whatsoever. My heart was beating out of my chest. Already I missed the lift and I just thought, oh my God, I cannot bomb out at this competition. I've never bombed out in a competition, like I can't do it here. But went out and power snatched 84 on the second attempt, actually got it. My reaction to that actually broke the internet that day.
Yeah.
Oh
Totally.
my God, so embarrassing, but whatever. But yeah, then I missed 87 on my last attempt, which is sad just because obviously I was prepared to do so much more. I definitely prepared to hit 90 plus on the Olympic stage. But I do definitely credit my incredible list of experiences, international experiences, to getting that second attempt.
Yeah.
I don't think if I wasn't so experienced in competitions, I don't think I would have managed to keep myself together for that second attempt. Just because I honestly can't explain the feeling on the Olympic stage. I cannot compare it to anything else in my life. I cannot compare it to any other experience. I just wanted it over and done with. And I'm never like that stage. I was just like, okay, let's just get this over and that, because I literally I couldn't breathe. I was numb. Everything felt like weird. It was just so stressful. The only lift I truly enjoyed doing was the last clean and jerk, because by that time I had the total, I was on the list, I had the result. And then I literally looked at my coach and I said, you know what, put whatever you want on the bar now, because I will do it. And in fact, we did like a 5 kilo jump just to get a national record, which was, 5 kilo jump at the time was big because of the weight cut. And I remember telling him, I'm going to do it for sure. Like, I have no stress all of a sudden. And I just went up there and had the time of my life, demolished that last lift, best lift I've ever done in my life. Got the national record, and then broke down for the rest of the day. Like it just finally hit me. And I remember before I went out for the last lift, Jasmine actually told me, like, savor the moment. You have no idea what you're doing so far. I was so stressed and panicked. He's like, savor that moment on the last lift. And I just looked back at the Olympic sign, and it was just such a special moment. And also that day, so I competed on the 27th of July, I believe. 27th of July. And the next day was my auntie's birthday, who had passed away 3 years before.
Right.
Who was like my number one fan when I started, and she truly believed I would make it to the Olympics. So it just felt really fitting that I was lifting so close to her birthday.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I just took my time, looked at the Olympic signs, took the surroundings in. And I'm really glad I did that, because that's the only thing I remember from the competition. Honestly, like everything before it is such a blur, and it was such a great moment in my life. I don't think it's going to be really hard to top it. I always joke around it at the house, and with my boyfriend, like, people always say like their wedding day is one of the most amazing days of their life. It's going to be a tough wedding day. Like, you need to really step it up. It's going to be really hard to beat that moment on the Olympic stage for me. So yeah, that was absolutely amazing.
And did you find, like, looking back, obviously you wanted to hit the biggest total you could have done, but looking back, was the experience of being at the Olympics far more important and just far outweighed what you actually ended up lifting? Like, it almost didn't matter in the end.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, I lifted equal my best at the Olympics.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
So I mean, I did a bit less in the snatch and more in the clean and jerk. It was disappointing that I could have done so much more, but at that point, it wasn't as important to me as getting a result at the Olympics. Because, like I said, other competitions before it were to qualify for the Olympics. So the amount you lift was super important to get to it. But I mean, once I got to it, I knew that to beat the person ranked above me, like in the Olympic Games, I would have still not outranked even if I lifted my best that day. So just getting the total was super important. Having that result for my country, the first one, you know, because no matter other girls will surely go to the Olympics in the future for Malta and will surely demolish my national records. I mean, seeing how they're lifting now. But I will forever be the first one to do it.
Yeah,
no one can ever take that away from me. So that was super important for me to do that, for sure.
Yeah. So after the Olympics, and this is something that generally people don't talk about, but I've noticed more and more Olympians are coming forward about this, is the difficulty with readjusting back to normal life after the Olympic Games. Like you said, it was the biggest high of your career, of your life. And you've also been quite open with mental health in the past, talking about when you had your ankle injury. Can you talk a little bit about, not necessarily just after the Olympic Games, but just the difficulties that you found with your mental health whilst, you know, focusing on weightlifting?
Yeah. So of course, when you accomplish something that's like the Olympic Games, coming back from that and going back to being super normal and like there's nothing else that big that you can look forward to anytime soon, you know, your training changes. Obviously, a lot of athletes have definitely experienced that like down feeling post-Olympics. For me personally, I have worked on my mental health a lot in the past 3 to 4 years because of my difficulty with dealing with anxiety. So I have a lot of anxiety issues that I've had to learn how to deal with. So all of this post-Olympic stuff is something that we actually prepared for from way before. So I remember preparing for, you know, the bad news of not going to the Olympics as well. Like we always prepared for what would usually trigger my anxiety. So coming back from the Olympics for me was a bit better just because I was more prepared for what that was going to feel like. So it wasn't shocking for me in a way. Like I had prepared to know that, listen, you know, all of a sudden, all the media attention is going to be gone again. And, you know, no one's going to think, oh my God, she's amazing, you know, because you get all this support and attention, and then all of a sudden everything's gone. No one cares what you're doing anymore. So I was very prepared for that.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, I dealt with it very well. And it helps a lot that my family and my friends and my boyfriend are incredible human beings who continue to support me regardless. And it also helps that we have Commonwealth Games this year.
Yeah.
So for me, it's basically a second Olympics happening within 12 months of each other. So we immediately had something else to work towards. So that definitely helped me a lot as well. Mentally, I already had something else to look forward to. And in fact, the first competition after the Olympics was in October for us, small nations. And then we went on to do Worlds in December, which were also Commonwealth Games qualifications. So it was easier for me, I guess, because of that situation. But mental health in general in athletes is a very important topic for me, and I do talk about it a lot, especially because unfortunately maybe not too many people talk about it, and other athletes coming up probably assume that the great athletes that go to the Olympics or, you know, go to Worlds or whatever don't deal with anxiety and panic attacks, where I promise you it's a lot more, the prevalence of it is a lot higher than anyone would ever imagine. I'm also actually doing a master's degree now in sports and PE, and I've researched this a lot. It is one of like my favorite topics to research about, and which is why I talk about it even more. But yes, like I said, mental health is and will always be like an important topic for me to just share and talk about on my social media, because I think it's such an important area of an athlete's life.
And are there things that you've learned throughout having to deal with, you know, anxiety, certain things that have helped you specifically? Obviously, like you said, having a strong family and support circle around you is a big thing, but are there almost like daily practices that you do that have made a difference?
Yeah, so I think something that I've also kind of learned from training with Lori is being a bit more forgiving. So if I've missed a snatch, I should just be like, okay, just take the weight back and do it again. Like, it's fine. Or, skip that weight today. And it was so casual, like even the coach there was so casual to do that. Like, it's okay, you didn't hit it today, fine, just whatever, like go back in the weight. That they have a very like forgiving mentality where before I used to beat myself up all the time if I missed one single lift. Whereas, now I'm just a lot more forgiving. So my mental approach towards training is a lot better. If I have a bad day, I'll just take the weight back and fix it and not obsess about getting exactly what's on the program, the exact same weight at the exact same repetitions. So if there's one thing I definitely think that helped me is just being a lot more forgiving with myself and not expect perfection, because it is just unattainable.
Yeah, I think when you have such an incredible goal that you want to go after, you tell yourself that everything has to be perfect in the build up to it. And so then if it's not, you start blaming yourself and you start projecting it into the future and worrying, and it can be really unhealthy. Sure. Can we talk very quickly? Do you have time, by the way? Are you okay?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about social media? Because obviously your social media fame is like really impressive. But I'm not so interested in, like, obviously you've done very well, but what I'm interested in is, how do you decide how much of yourself to put out there and how much to keep to yourself? Because the people who I know, I'm obviously a big fan of yours, but a lot of other people I know are, and they really like the fact that you are open with your life. But I don't imagine that you share everything. How do you kind of draw a line for them? And then also, how do you draw a line in your own life to be like, this isn't real necessarily, like I can just live my life?
Yeah. So when it comes to my personal routine and everything I'm going through, I'm very transparent on social media. The line I draw is when it includes other people in my life. So let's say I spend a very good portion of my day with my nephew, who is like my favorite person in the world. But obviously I respect their privacy and my family's privacy and my sister's privacy. And, I do not share that part of my life a lot on social media, just because that is not my life to share. But everything that just is just about me, I'm very okay with sharing. And I think I do credit my following to that, because I am, and I do try to answer as many, let's say, request messages and people that ask me questions. I try to answer as many of those as possible. And I try to keep it as genuine as possible, because I think that's why people started following me in the first place. But social media to me is a bit weird in the sense that I've just always done exactly what I'm doing now. It's just that when we went through lockdown in March 2020, my Instagram just exploded for some reason.
Do you have any idea why? Did you start posting a different type of content? Or?
So to be honest, I focused more on social media. So I've always loved social media and content creating. And my younger sister is a fashion influencer in Malta. And I was always helping her, take content. I'd come up with ideas for her and I'll tell her, I saw this on Pinterest, you should recreate this photo. I was always very into content creating. So when we were in lockdown and I was super bored, I just decided, let me just change up my social media, film all the ideas I've always had, because I have more time. And it just, I didn't do too much that was different there. I just posted more often. I think that's the only thing. I posted more often, almost every single day at the time. And all of a sudden, I was getting 10,000 new followers a week for the entire lockdown. Yeah, it grew to 70,000. So it grew from 17,000 to 70,000 within 6 months. So a lot of growth at the time, and then it just gradually to 70,000. And then by the time I went to the Olympics, we were past 100K. And it's strange because I keep doing the same thing and you just keep following it. So it's great. I love it. I love creating content and working now, being able to work with global brands that I love, like GymShark's, is just such an added bonus that my job is actually being a content creator. and sharing that through my social media. I think it's just been really fun because I love doing it. I love coming up with ideas, creating content. So yeah, it's been great. And you know, the thing with social media is it's constantly changing as well.
Yeah.
A lot that goes into it that people don't maybe appreciate in terms of insights and kind of going with the trend and Instagram algorithm. So should you post reels or posts or stories? You know, there's so much that goes into it, which I love. It is a full-time job for me.
It is, yeah.
At the moment, yeah.
Yeah, I find Instagram, I really like it. Like, it's a good platform for us. And we started posting. I took a bit of time off, like the Weightlifting House Instagram. We started posting again in November, and we went from like 111 to 130,000. And it was like really good. I was like, wow, we're gaining like 150-ish followers a day. Yeah. And then the last 2 weeks, it's just dropped. Yeah. And now it's like you're getting like 10, 20, 40 a day. And it's like, I don't understand why. Yeah. And like, you know, it was Reels are really helping. Reels are doing so well. And now I'm like, have they changed it again? And it's hard. You've got to experiment and try a lot of different things to work out like, what is it that's going to work? But that's part of the game, I guess.
But it's also so much fun discovering what doesn't. And, you know, I think in a way, so a part of me tries to make sure to follow the trends, you know, use Reels if Reels are doing well, use posts if posts are doing well. But at the same time, what I've noticed is keeping my Instagram genuine. It will always be the most important part for me. In fact, you know, as one of the very few weightlifting influencers in the world, I would say, it's great because I do get a lot of job opportunities. Yeah. But I always make sure to only promote the things that I love, that I use, that I genuinely want to promote, because there's a very fine line between influencer in the term, like what the job describes, and actually influencing. Being an influencer to other people. So I always want to be genuine. That is my number one priority, and it will never change. 100%.
Were you kind of shocked? Because I know that when you're at the level of following that you have, and you've got some, and I want to talk about GymShark, but you've got people like GymShark and other brands who work with you, you can earn a really good living. And then is it almost a shock when you go, wow, I'm in the low six figures. These people who have millions of followers, it's like, it's unbelievable how much money they make through this stuff. It's shocking.
It is a full-time job. It's I think a lot of people don't understand that it's not just about taking a picture, you know, like it's not just that. There's a lot more that goes into it. For me personally, working with GymShark has been a dream come true. I recently started working with a manager. Snorri is also Sarah Sigmund's daughter's manager, my manager as well.
Who's doing very well, because she got Sarah the WIT deal. Yeah. And then suddenly you're in GymShark. It's like, wow, that's a good manager.
And I actually told him, he said, you know, like, what brands do you like for clothing? And I immediately said GymShark. He's like, just GymShark. I was like, oh my God, if I get GymShark, like I'm obsessed with it. Like, I love it. I wear it all the time. Like, I think there's such great quality clothes. They look great and they're super functional. I kept going on and on. He's like, you know what? Like, I'm sure they would love you. Like, he was really, really convinced. And now working with them has been a dream. They are so supportive. You know, if I'm at a competition, they're completely fine with me, you know, like they just want me to do well. They just want me to do well in my sport. That's their priority, which is amazing. Like,
it's amazing,
working with a brand that is honestly just all they want from me is for me to continue doing what I'm doing, perform well, being part of this. It's literally such like a family community as well. Everyone is supporting each other, and I'm actually going to hopefully visit them soon. So that would be a great experience to finally actually meet the team in person as well. So.
Well, they're only about a 10-minute drive from here. We're really close. Okay. Yeah, I've been to GymShark and spent a little bit of time there been to the gym, been around the headquarters, and
Oh my
spoken
God,
to the
their
people.
lifting club looks
It's
amazing.
really nice.
I
Yeah.
can't wait. Like it was one of my bucket list things way before GymShark knew about me, was to train in their lifting club. So that's gonna be absolutely, again, a dream come true, to be able to work with a brand that is so much more than just the clothes. They are so much more than that, and it's actually been great working with them.
Yeah, I think what they've done better than so many companies is like they've been able to marry like the culture with their clothing. Because when you think about GymShark, you really don't just think clothing. You think about inclusivity. You think about lots of different people all coming together and sharing a passion for health. And, you know, whether that's physical or mental health, they kind of have that. And it's really nice to see. Exactly. I mean, when we spoke at Worlds, you were telling me a bit about GymShark, because I'm just interested in what they do. And the fact that they'd said to, like, you have a certain number of, I guess, posts that you have to do, but they said to you, like, don't worry about it, focus on Worlds, focus on your performance, that comes first. And it's like, how many companies would say that? Like, it's so good,
honestly. And like I said, I guess people in the sporting industry are usually more understanding. But yes, I mean, every single person in the GymShark team, they just want me to do well. They just want me to perform well. And, you know, at the end of the day, that is their priority as well. So my priorities are their priorities. If I have Worlds, then they just want me to do well and you know, perform well. And I mean, I share a lot of my life through Instagram, and I'm literally living in their clothing all the time. It doesn't hurt that I love their clothes as well. So to have both aspects, you know, be treated so well and look great doing so, it's just been great.
Yeah, people can tell, because like when you have to promote something that you don't really love, it's kind of obvious. But like it's very clear on your Instagram that you are obsessed with the clothes. Like, and it's really nice to see. Like, you would be, if they sent them to you and, you know, you weren't one of their athletes, whatever, I'm sure you'd still be like, OMG, obsessed with this new pair of tights. You know what I mean?
In fact, people, I think, saw it coming, because I've been wearing GymShark for years now. Like, I think I got my first set as a gift from my younger sister like 3 years ago. And, you know, I mean, these sets I kept getting like few at a time. Like, I just obsessively wore them. So I think that's the reason why I wanted, and this is what I meant. So I want to be a content creator, but I want to promote only things that I genuinely love, because it makes your job so much easier.
Oh, so much easier,
when you're promoting things that you genuinely use all the time. So it's funny though, me and my manager kind of joke about it, because it's the only brand I wanted, and we got it. So you know, usually it's not as easy, of course. I mean, it's a competitive field in the athletic world. So it's just great that I think both our styles match quite a lot. I'm a lot about community, about family, about, you know, training together, supporting each other, and they have those set of values, exact set of values. So we just merged really easily. Like we just connected really easily, I guess.
And what amazed me was you're their only Olympian.
I believe.
Is that right?
So. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe in Europe, I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe in Europe. Like in the past, they worked with Zoe Smith.
Okay.
She had been an Olympian, but she's obviously not with them now. So currently, I don't know, at least in Europe, I don't know of any other Olympians, which is kind of cool.
Weightlifting, I assume so, yes, but I'm not entirely sure. I mean, there's so many, and I honestly follow as many of them as possible, just because there's so many incredible GymShark athletes. But yeah, I'm not sure. There's so many, like from Australia and America, that maybe I don't know about. So
so final thing on this then, for people listening, what are some accounts that give you motivation that other people maybe should check out? Are there any that spring to mind on Instagram, that sort of thing?
Like weightlifting?
Weightlifting or not?
Oh, this is a difficult question, because I take on motivation from like different things. So let's say, I mean, Meta Rogers will always be a main motivation for me, just because of how real she is and how much of her personal life she shares as well. You know, she shares the ugly part of training in a way, which I think is really relatable. But then I use someone like Laura Diana's Instagram to just look at her lifts and go, how is this even possible?
Yeah.
Motivate you to just go to a training session and be super fast and snappy. And I actually watched Laura Diana's warm-up video from one of her competitions on YouTube before every single competition, just because it just motivates you so much to kind of, it just makes me feel like I'm warming up to her, next to her again. So she inspires me and motivates me in that way. But then I actually use a GymShark girl's Instagram as content inspiration. So maybe not training inspiration, but her content creation ideas are great. Videos, she has funny videos about training, and it's just such a great Instagram to follow. And it's Whitney Simmons, who's popular.
She's huge.
Yeah. But it's just, her Instagram is just always so upbeat, and the way she creates content is really, really fun. She merges training with funny videos and outfit photos really well. So I think she's one of my main content creating inspirational Instagram pages.
Well, maybe you'll get to the point one day where Gymshark, because obviously they have the Whitney Simmons range, maybe they'll do like Yazmin Stevens range.
A weightlifting specific collection. It would be a dream.
That would be really cool. Yazmin, I think we should probably wrap up there. Thank you so much for talking and being so open. I think it's really interesting to hear a genuine experience of going to the Olympics, like how difficult it is, how fun it is, how how kind of nerve-wracking all of this stuff is. It's very relatable, what you talk about. So I'm sure most people listening already follow you, so I'm going to tell people to follow your Instagram, but you also you have done some YouTube videos.
Yes.
Do you plan on doing any more of that?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So people can go follow your YouTube.
It's going to be a big year for my YouTube page.
Interesting. Okay, cool. All right. Well, I'll put a link to that down below as well. Anywhere else? Is there like a Gymshark link for people to go through?
Yeah. So whenever people shop on Gymshark, they can use the link that is in my bio on Instagram, and that way they will be supporting me directly.
Great. I'll grab that link. I'll put that down below as well in case anybody wants some stuff. I think that's about it. Yazmin, thank you so much once again. And guys, I appreciate it. And guys, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll catch you all on another episode of the Weightlifting House podcast.